Hello and welcome to my podcast. Do me a favor, subscribe to the John Conn Report wherever you get your podcast. You're watching on YouTube, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. You can find us there as part of Ampire Media, AMPIRE. Always much appreciated when you tune in. And don't forget, you can read my work on ESPN.com. I'll have a story up in a couple of days on kind of the state of the offensive line, why they're still optimistic that it will be much better than last season. There are a number of reasons, not just because they have different players, but because the scheme, because the quarterback, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Now, the question is, will they have enough time to kind of put everything together, given some of the injuries that they've had already up front? Nothing major, but anyways, I'll get into all that. But first, let's get to Martavis Bryant. Washington signed the veteran receiver on Tuesday morning. And so a couple of things with that. One, I would caution people to kind of slow your roll on what to expect from him. We don't really know. The guy hasn't played in the NFL since 2018, was suspended indefinitely for substance abuse, and then was reinstated last year, signed to Dallas practice squad, never got in a game, did come back, played in a couple indoor or minor league football teams, was with two CFL teams, never played. So he's been doing things since then. He just hasn't played in the NFL. So we know what the traits are. It doesn't mean he's going to come in and be like, oh my gosh, he's a secret weapon here. We don't know that. So let's slow down a little bit about what to expect. And hopefully you've been doing that already. I think in a one definite scenario that I can see here is he makes the practice squad and they keep him around, see how he develops in this offense, because you're talking about a guy who hasn't been with them until now. He's not just going to come right in and learn the offense like that. So I think that's one thing you have to kind of like see how that goes. And then it comes down to something else Dan Quinn talked about in his press conference with us before practice when discussing the move. He said that when he was in Dallas with him, one of the things that he really liked about Bryant is how he challenged their defense by being on the practice squad during practice. And I think that's something you can look for here. They do not have anybody who has these traits that would be on the practice squad for sure. So he's 6'4". He is pretty fast. You have Bryson Tremaine, who's 6'4", but he's about a 4.6 40 guy. So it's not really a guy that's, he's size helps, but you have a guy with size and speed that if he can then go do some things in practice to help get you ready when you're facing an A.J. Brown, guys like that who are a little bit bigger, or maybe guys who have the size and the speed, it can help prepare you better. And I will say one thing I've learned about Quinn, and just we saw it again today in another situation. Last week they brought in two right-footed punters to help get the returners ready for catching punts off right-footed kickers during a game like last week. So because Tressway is obviously left-footed, well, they did that again today. So this is a guy that wants to be prepared and help get you, like, if this can help prepare you for a situation, then you bring him in and that's how you're going to use that guy. So that could be a scenario for Bryant. And then with that, where does he go from there? Because if you cut him in a couple weeks, I don't think another team's going to pick him up. He's been out there until now. So another team could have done that already, and they have not done that. So unless he goes out there next two games and goes crazy on the field with stats and production, well, then he's going to be probably available to put on the practice squad and then see how it goes from there. But so it's an interesting experiment to see what he does. And we'll keep getting into that. But when you look at the receiver room, it's not a deep room, right? Terry McLaurin, Jahan Dotson, who hasn't had like this awesome camp. He's been somewhat quiet, but he had a few plays today. He's had some, a couple underneath routes or some out routes that he's been able to do. So, that's there, but we haven't seen these big plays from him where you say, oh my gosh, this guy's ready to just explode. Haven't seen that, but you do see some of the other stuff that they would like. He still has to get better to me getting off the ball at the line of scrimmage against press coverage. But you put him in there, right? And then you have De'Ami Brown, who's been working as a three. He's coming off a couple good plays in a game. I think we've seen those before. The question for him has always been building on that consistently. But we have seen it. He did have one of those in the joint practice. He had it in the game. We've seen it a couple times out here. But he has the speed. So you put him in that category too. And Luke McCaffrey, you put him in there. He's a rookie third-round pick. He's not going anywhere. Then you have Olamide Zaccheaus, who I think has had a nice camp and possibly can help them as a punt returner, which could jeopardize Jamison Crowder. The one thing with Zaccheaus, I felt like he did a nice job in that role the other day, but he also is a return after he got the ball. But I felt like his couple catches were a little bit shakier than you would like. So see how that develops there. But anyways, the point is it's not a deep room. So there's a chance for a guy like Bryant. But then, to me right now, he comes in there battling with guys like, Pringle and Tremaine and Tinsley for one of those, maybe a last 6 or 7 spot on the receiver depth chart. And then we'll see. But again, Tremaine had another nice long catch today. I just don't know that in a game situation against starters, is he going to be able to get open like that down the field? But I do think his size has helped in other ways, and he's had a good camp for sure. So we'll see how that goes. To make room for Bryant, they released kicker Ramiz Ahmed, and no surprise there. I think the one surprise is that Riley Patterson hasn't looked better. Like, he has not looked really good. He banged 2 off the uprights on Monday, missed another one today from inside 40, but he's got the experience. And I also think, and I always felt like, and still feel like, the guy who ultimately would get the job is probably with another team right now. And so, but Patterson now has a chance to go out there and impress over the next couple of weeks. But I don't think what he's done to date should make them feel very comfortable just riding with him for sure. I would still take a look at some other guys, and especially if he doesn't get better, then you're going to have to go somewhere else because it just hasn't been good enough. But so anyway, we talked to Terry McLaurin afterwards about Brian. He said that you see the size, you see the speed, and how he attacks the ball. And, you hope that, he didn't say it quite like this, but, you want to see what he then has left as a receiver, but the skill set, right? The other thing that he said, it looks like that Bryant was in shape, and Brian agrees. He said he went from 230 last year. He's now at 208. So that's going to help for sure as well. So, it's worth a shot. And then you go from there, right? And see what might happen from there. And Brian has, like I said, he played in some minor leagues. I think one thing that because of this, he said, I don't think he said he didn't really ever take it for granted with being in the NFL. But one thing he did say is that given his road, the journey he's had to travel, how strong-minded he had to be. He said he never gave up on himself, which is obviously an important thing. He said now, he loves the opportunity, but he's like, he knows he has to do more. He knows he has to go out there and look good. And that's for sure, because if you don't, then you're not going to be, this could be your last opportunity. I think he has to attack it like that for sure and see what can happen with that. So, that's, like I said, that's very important. And this, so anyways, that's all on him. And let's move on to some stuff on the field. So this was the last workout before they go down to Miami for the joint practice. I will not be down there, but I will be talking to Nikki Javala from the Washington Post on Thursday afternoon after the joint practice sessions. I'll be up in Boston. We'll be visiting my son in the show, but I will not be in Miami for the practice or the game, but I will be joined by Nikki, and I will be watching the game just like I did last week and give you my observations. And Nikki will give you really good insight as to what happened in that practice and what you need to know. I think one of these things to keep in mind with these joint practices is the individual matchups they can see. That's one thing they want to see against New York. That's why they had Emmanuel Forbes going up against Garrett Wilson. They want to see what can the guy do. Now, we saw what happened. I think some of that too is there are mechanical issues still with him. You can fix mechanical issues. You can't fix size. You can't fix speed that much, right? But you can fix the mechanics. I think you're going to see them try to work with that, because what they also saw during the game was they liked that he tackled a few times. They liked how he handled some 2-minute situations, right? Making some plays there. And they also liked that, in the game, and Quinn said he could have had a pick on that first deep ball, really good position. They'd like to see him finish that. And I would say, I think one of the things that's been true, I think, in those practices and the game, he needs to finish better. So, and sometimes that's finding the ball, sometimes that's picking it off. But in the red zone and then in the deep one, Garrett Wilson did not do a good job locating the ball down the field. But again, like, you can work on some of the mechanics of it. And so I think they're going to be somewhat patient with him. Doesn't mean he's going to start necessarily. It's not, he's been working with the starters, ignore the depth chart stuff, but he's been working with the starters. Doesn't mean that's how he's going to open, but they are going to give him every chance to see what he can do there for sure. And so there were things that they did like, but there are also definitely things that he has to work on. But that's what these joint sessions are for. See what guys can do. Then it helps you formulate your decision on how to use them in a game, if to use them in a game, what situations to use them in a game is just collecting information. So kind of view it in those terms. It's a little bit like a pitcher sometimes, like going to spring training and like, oh, hey, let's see how your changeup is developing. Let's see. Okay, it's not there. We're not going to use it a lot during the season, right? Sometimes it's like that, or but I think in Forbes' case, he's got to show better for sure. But there are things that they feel like they can build on to help get, and then you see, can you get the mechanics to the point where, and the fundamentals to the point where he can then become a consistent player for you and then make plays. So I think there's definitely a question there. The question would be, what do they do if that doesn't happen? But we'll see on that one. And I don't think he's like in danger of being cut or anything like that. Not at this point. I think the only question is when you have guys coming from who are new who have a new regime. You have some guys in the past who hadn't worked out yet. You're always wondering about who might they trade, and would somebody be a trade candidate? And I don't know that they're. Listen, you're gonna always talk to teams. I don't know what they're doing with some of these guys, whether it's him or Mathis, Jamin Davis. I do think they want to keep him here. I think that for Davis, it's been a work in progress. And I talked to him yesterday after practice, and one of the things he talked about, like on the 2 run plays that he had did a really nice job. He said it was as simple as he stepped the right way. Before he was kind of stepping almost as if in a linebacker situation, but he would kind of get himself out of a gap. This time he stepped right into the tackle, right into the tight end, and that made a big difference. So it's little things like that. That's the progression. Before he might step to a side, now he was stepping right into them and setting a good edge. So then I think as a pass rusher, one of the things he's got to work on, first you work on your get off. Then you're working after that. Now you're seeing how are they setting, and then based on how they're setting, how do you then adjust off of that? And then how do you set guys up? How do you then develop a counter moves? Like he's still going through that piece by piece by piece. So that's why it's going to take a little bit of time as a pass rusher. So that's why they're going to give him time. And just to see, again, he's got size, he's got speed. You're not going to give up on that easily, especially when you start to see some progression in some of the subtle areas of the position. So, anyways, just wanted to throw that out there. And like I said, I don't think Davis is in that category of like guys that they would move on from right away. So in full team, I said, Forbes still out there with the ones. At times Mike Samerstill was working on the outside a little bit. I think you want to see, can he do that? Because what if Forbes isn't a guy that you want to start with? Can Samerstill then maybe take his place with Igbenegany taking the spot inside in the slot? I apologize. It's Igbenegany. I've got to get that right because I keep, I don't want to mess up someone's name, but because he has shown he can play in the slot, if they feel comfortable with Samerstill outside, if Forbes isn't getting it done, I don't think we're at that yet. Samerstill is not a big guy on the outside. I think you're still going to have some trouble with some bigger receivers if that's the case, and you can't just play. Sometimes you are going to be matched up against a bigger guy no matter what you do, because offenses are really good at creating mismatches. And unless you're just going to travel with 2 receivers, with your corners all day, at some point you're going to get matched up against a guy that's not a great matchup. So can he do that? There's a lot to be determined there. It starts with how does Forbes play Thursday against the Joints, and then Saturday in the game against the Dolphins is going to be facing some good receivers. I do think Zacchaeus continues to flash. I like his quickness underneath. And I think that's a good development for them. Again, it's just about catching the punts. Anuzium, the corner, the rookie undrafted guys got some good run at corner today. I still think he's kind of the guy that you would probably put on practice squad and be okay and help develop and hope he develops there. But I do think he's a guy that you would want to keep around in some capacity, just because I think he's shown a thing or two. He worked as a gunner on the first punt coverage the other day when Owens made the play. Anuzium also got down, beat against one-on-one coverage, also gets down the field and was in position as well. If Owens doesn't make the play, Anuzium is in the right spot to do his job as well. So those things are really important too. So that's one thing. And then more situational work today. I don't know that I've seen this team work on as much situational stuff as they have this summer. Really good. That's how it's kind of like, working on your chipping and putting in golf. Like that's where you're going to kind of earn your money, right? And so it can get you out of it. If you maybe you don't do some good things, but you do well in third downs, you do well in the red zone, you can have a good a good game. So they've done a lot of that. Today was a lot of 2 minute situations, where you're trailing. They've done 4 minute situations where you got to try and run out the clock, those kind of things. So that all helps. And they did some more of that today. Jayden Daniels, hey, how about him? He did a nice job in finishing the 2 minute drill today, and it was now the ones were going against backups, some twos and some threes. But what I like is the decision making and how he handles the process. So on this one, they finished the 2 minute drive. It's around, I think it's around the 10-yard line. There's like 20 seconds left, and you got to throw it in the end zone. I think there was less than 20, and the defense shows an all out blitz. What I like is he makes a quick decision. He goes to Terry McLaurin on the left side. But what I like is, again, quick decision. And he also drifts back away from the pressure. That's the instincts that they really like. So whether you're going against starters or backups, that's the stuff you like. Now, I will say, too, it's funny because you talk to some veteran defensive coaches in the league, and even going back to that play the other day against the Jets, the 42-yarder, I talked to one person, like even though he did a really good job holding the safety, he wondered if there's a veteran safety in there, if maybe he's got to hold it just a split second longer. And then, and maybe put a little, throw was really good. But so that was one thing you wondered, but that's like the instincts are still there to do it right away. And so I think that might be a little bit nitpicky, but you always wonder, like, if it's not the stars, what happens when they are? And maybe that's a little thing where you have to do, but he's already doing it. So I certainly believe that if that's the case, you do it a little bit longer. I don't think that would be a big issue for him because he's already doing it. But again, felt like he did a nice job, very nice job on the play. So, and these guys do too. So for sure. And I know, like you talked I'm going to get more of that on Wednesday, but anyways, there you go. But today, so we had that one. I like how he backpedaled away, drifted back, and gets avoided for the pressure. Throws a really nice ball to McLaurin, who makes a contested catch. And that's the other thing he does. He gives guys a chance to make a contested catch, and these guys like that. He had a nice deep ball to Zach Ertz not deep ball, but deep crosser. We had to scramble out to the right. And Jeremy Reeves has good coverage in front of Ertz. And honestly, I'm not sure how the ball gets in there. Ertz makes a diving catch. I don't know how the ball got in there because it looks like Reeves is right there. But it was but as they talk about, really good ball placement by Daniels on the throw. So that's how you do it, folks. He had a deep out to Zach Ertz, good timing on the play. And I think he's going to be a really, really key person for Jayden Daniels. And then he had one over the middle to Luke McCaffrey. I liked on this play, I think on this one, you had Forbes covering Dotson down the field, but you had McCaffrey just coming over the middle. But what I like on the play, again, the use of the eyes. I felt like he did a good job moving the defense enough with his eyes and then getting it back to McCaffrey over the middle in time for him to turn and then get yards after the catch. That's a key. Like getting it to a check down or somebody else in time. Even if it's your third guy, if you're getting it to him in time, he's going to have some opening to run, and that's what he does on this play. So Andrew Wiley was back out there today. They were in full pads. He was back out there. Cornelius Lucas was back out there at left tackle. Wiley definitely took reps in 11 on 11s. Not all of them. Trent Scott went in later. By the way, Bryant, I think, had 2 reps in 11 on 11. So anyway, just wanted to throw that out there. But so for the line, you had Wiley out there. And then so the first group was there together for the most part. Brandon Coleman's still not practicing. Told you yesterday in one of the shorts that he would not practice. I don't know when he's going to be back out there. The one good thing for them is if you have a guy in Lucas who can go out there and open the season as a starter if they need him to. He's a veteran. He can go out there and play for several games, whatever it is, and you can feel like you know what he's going to do. So, ideally they see what Coleman can do, and I think they really like him. I just think there's so much more to learn because he's got to get back out there, folks, because it's going to be hard to really know what he is unless you see him against some team and another team. Like these joint sessions would have been really, really good for him. So it's really a big loss for Brandon Coleman. But I think he's a smart kid, good skill set, but you still need those reps. You still need that experience. So it's going to take a minute for him to maybe get caught back up to speed, in my opinion. One time, this is where tight end help can be beneficial. So one time Trent Scott kind of whiffs on a block, but the tight end then helps out and knocks the guy back, and then Scott recovers and takes him. So an initial miss that doesn't end up looking bad because the tight end helped and the ball was completed on the other side of the play. Johnny Newton still not out there. Did not expect him to be. Dante Fowler Jr. working off to the side. Not sure what's going on with him. We're not getting great injury updates. And then today, before the press or before practice, we're asking a lot about Martavis Bryant. So, there you go. The other thing they've done a lot of is working on hard counts. And, it's funny because they've had a lot of false starts. That's partly the reason. Today, Mariota with the hard count gets Dorrance Armstrong to jump. And, and it's funny because on the play, it was the second offensive line. So he had Sam Cosmi ran down to one of the officials who were at practice today and was asking for his flag so he could go throw the flag himself. Now, the official did not have a flag. Somebody else had him through it. But it does kind of show like where these guys are at. And it's funny because one thing you notice in these practices is how loud it gets, especially with these defensive guys and especially defensive line coach Darryl Tapp. He's a loud dude and he is constantly talking and trying. And he's going to be I think he's going to be one of those in-your-face kind of guys that's just like, very vocal and loud. But I also think that guys respect him because of his approach. And like you see the D linemen going, they look like they enjoy going through their drills when you're watching them as much as you can when it starts getting really hot out here. One of the other plays too. Jeremy Chin had one play where I really liked how he stayed home on it. He's coming up by the line of scrimmage. Action of the play goes to the other side. He stays home. Mariota comes outside. He's right there, would have made the play. Just a good job by him. Then there was another time where Kingsbury gets, with a little bit of motion and formation, you get Terry McLaurin matched up against Chin. And you got a two-way go on him, and he gets open, and he's just like celebrating because he's wide open, but ball goes to the other side. So McLaurin said after the practice, like, that's something where you go back and sit down with Jayden when you watch the practice film. It's like, oh, okay. That was there because you got this matchup. If you get Terry in the safety, I don't care what the play is, that's where you're going. And McLaurin knows that. And I guarantee you that later today, Jayden Daniels will see it and know that as well. But it's funny because watching McLaurin at the sidelines all saw it and they were kind of going crazy. And Terry was kind of celebrating afterwards because he knew like this is what you want if you're Terry McLaurin. And it's what he got. You just got to then, everybody's got to see it and then get the ball to him. Jayden Daniels continued to get a lot of work at right tackle. Thought he was okay against KJ Henry. That's kind of who he's been working against. The other guy that I like, and I haven't talked a lot about him, is Noah Pollard, the defensive tackle from Virginia Tech. He's a guy that, and I talked about him on the club for the members yesterday, but he's a guy that I think this team likes. I think he's got a real shot to whether it's certainly stay on the practice squad, maybe get one of the last defensive tackle spots, depending what happens with a guy like Fedarian Mathis. And then because you got Podaway, number 79, Benning Podaway, and then, Ridgeway, then it depends on what Newton's health is, right? So I think there's some obstacles ahead of him. They do like him. After practice, I'm watching him run some sprints back and forth. But he is a guy that is certainly made his presence known to this team and see where it goes from there. Percy Butler saw him working against tight ends the other day in the game. Saw him against Ben Sinnott today. Did a nice job. Probably did a nice job in the game with that. Nice job with his feet, not getting overpowered. So I think that's been good for him to show. And then I go back to the offensive line, and one of the things again that you know is that I know what the numbers were last year, and to think it was just the offensive line is just inaccurate. So there was quarterback, it was play calling, it's scheme, right? So one of the things that these guys feel like is better is the marrying of concepts with the scheme. So if you can make the run look like the pass, that, et cetera, in a play action, now you've got a chance to help the offensive line. There were a handful of times that the offensive line did not do a good job in protection the other day. Did you notice a guy getting sacked? No, because quarterbacks knew where to go with the ball and they were getting the ball out quick. If you can give them those kind of answers right away, then you can also mitigate whatever issues are up front. Now you need to I think they feel really good about the interior. I still think there's more to learn about the tackles. I'm not going to sugarcoat this and say all is fine, but I do think there are ways, and I've talked about this before, and I'm going to keep talking about it because I do think it matters. They need time together for sure, but I do think there are other elements with this year that can help them look better than what they did, than what the group last year did, because this is not the same group, but what the group last year did, because I don't think very many people last year were put in position to have success on offense because of how things were called, because of various situations, etc. So I think that's one thing. If you're looking for optimism on the offensive line, I think that's where you start, is that there is a change, but you still got to see guys play well. But again, on the deep ball, Chris Paul gets beat. Didn't affect it. It forces Daniels to step to his left and then make the throw, but he did it. So, and there were a few times where I see other guys whiff on a block on pass protection, ball gets out. So that's going to be a key too. So I think that for sure is a good thing. So anyway, folks, that's it for me. I will be back Wednesday with another episode and, talking more about practice, a little bit more of a camp report, talking about the receivers, the quarterbacks. I'm going to run an interview that I had with Terry McLaurin. So talk to you next time.